Good morning, everyone. I'm going to make sure I can find myself on here so I can read the comments once I flip down. Sometimes it takes a few minutes for the email to come through. Okay, so what we're going to be making today is a fun fold card, and I actually made this card the other day for a little friend whose skating birthday party we went to, which was super fun. And what we're going to do is, hi Stephanie, we're going to make kind of like a masculine card, but it really could go for anything. But what I thought we could do is I have two stamp sets that we could use. So I got these two. So we have Mountain Air and My Meadow. But also, if in a pinch, if you wanted to, you could also use Country Road if you have it to kind of jazz up the background, because I also got the Crackle Paint stamp out. But it's a really simple card. It uses a half sheet of cardstock, and we're going to also use, and this was not my idea, I saw it somewhere, we're going to use the classic label punch. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's a pretty simple card to make. And I think, okay, just got my notification, so let's see. Oh, I'm trying. This YouTube is kind of crazy. YouTube is really great for you guys, but it's hard to find it as yourself to be able to kind of watch along so you can watch your comments. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip you guys down to the craft table. One other thing I want to show you. If you don't follow me on YouTube, I am going to be live tomorrow on, not YouTube. If you don't follow me on Facebook, I'm going to be live tomorrow on Facebook. That's my usual time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. And I've been working on something, but it's not coming out the way I want it for me to be able to share it with you guys. I have thought of a backup, hi Amy, I thought of a backup stamp set that I could use, but I just want to give you a little sneak peek because I've done 4 of these now, and I did recently get a new embossing buddy, so I'm not sure if maybe my embossing buddy isn't as de-staticky as it normally is, but I'm just going to show you real quick. Maybe you can help me. Can you come help me? That would be nice. So I'm doing this. So the silhouette thing is all the rage now, which is kind of funny because it's like, why did we never think of this before to do this? But I've done this with the birds. So I've done 3 different versions. Hi, Stacy. And I've used all the same colors for the backgrounds, as you can see. Hi, Donna. Thanks for stopping in. But, and then this is the regular card here. So I did 2 of these. I did these differently. I'll tell you about these tomorrow as well. But what I've been trying to do is to make a really crisp silhouette. And I'm always ending up with a little bit of the black embossing powder is dusty. So I don't know if it's one of 2 things. I have noticed that my black embossing powder, so this is like a PSA. When you use your embossing powder, make sure that you're really careful to clean it up and move it out of the way prior to heating, because I have noticed in my regular black embossing powder, which this one is old, currently we have sparkly black embossing powder, it's getting a little bally, so I'm almost wondering if it isn't heated a couple spots of it and I've accidentally dumped it back in. So just know and be aware that when you are using your embossing powder, if you're collecting it, couple things. If you're collecting it into a coffee filter like I do, if you notice that you're getting little white bits in, because I did notice that in my black, take your coffee filter and move on from it. You don't want to keep using that one. The other thing is, when you're finished with it, to make sure that you put it back in the container and dump it. That way you're not accidentally heating some of it and then pouring it back in, because it's never going to really fully reheat. And you'll notice that because you'll see little balls, and they're not huge. They're still pretty tiny, but they're large compared to the size of the embossing powder. Make sure that you're really careful with putting it back into the container and closing it, or at least moving it out of the area. So you said you use glossy paper, which is great. That is true. But glossy, I'm almost wondering if like the static would even amp up here too, because it is so dry here right now. So I'm going to go ahead and flip you down. So if you do get a little seasick, now's the time you want to look away. I'll tell you when we're done. I'm going to flip you over, and you can see our out the window there. Bring you down. Try not to hit the off button in the process. Okay, so we're all settled. So if you've had to look away, you can look back now. Okie dokie. So I also was working on a box that I wanted to do. So I had this box completely cut out and cut it incorrectly. So that was a that was a fail. All right. So my question is, when I did this card the other day, what I used was, I'm trying to think what color I used because I only took a picture. I didn't save it. I used Pretty Peacock and navy, and it didn't quite turn out exactly as wonderfully as I wanted it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Pretty Peacock, but I think I'm going to use a different color as the background color. So I did, let's see if I can show it to you here. I don't know how well this is going to translate on screen, but I used Pretty Peacock as the background, and then I used navy as the backing color. I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use, I'll scoot you up, don't worry. I'm going to use garden green instead. I think it'll be a little bit prettier with garden green. So that is what I'm going to go with today. But we are going to use these. And again, you could use Country Road to add the background to part of your card if you'd like. So I have a half sheet of Pretty Peacock. That's going to be our base card. And I think I'm going to go with, I almost don't know if garden green will be a little bit too dark as well. But I don't know. Garden green I don't think is even hitting it for me because it's a little bit too dark. So I'm going to see if I can find, maybe, I wonder if Granny Apple wouldn't look so bad. Granny Apple might not be bad with it. I just want to kind of do something different. So if when we're finished, we're kind of like, yeah, this still wasn't our greatest color combination, we can always pick something different. So to start off, I'm just getting out some paper here so we can get started. What we're going to do is we're going to cut down a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and we're going to cut this down to 2 inches. Actually, I'm going to do 2 1/4. And please don't mind my fingernails. I am embarrassed to say they look absolutely horrible. I should have probably just taken my nail polish off, but I figured I didn't want to make it last any longer than it needed to be. So I have this cut down to 2 1/4 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and score this at 3 1/2. And then I'm going to cut it at 3 1/2. So basically I have a 2 1/4 by 7 inch piece. Okay, so 2 1/4 by 7, and then it's scored in half at 3 1/2. We're going to go that way. I think I need to change my blade. Then we're going to use a piece of Granny Apple Green, and we're going to cut this at 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. So that's going to layer underneath. Just like that, okay? Now our other piece I already did score, but we do need to trim a piece off. So this measures 4 1/4 by 11. Scored in half already at 5 1/2, but we want to trim this off at 2 3/4. So we're going to take a piece off. 2 3/4. Okay, hi Gail. Hope you're doing well. All right, so here is what we have. We have a partial card, so we only have this one little flap here, but this is going to lay over top of it like that, okay? So this part's pretty simple. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your classic label punch and you're going to feed it in as far as it goes, and just kind of make sure that you have it centered. Oh, Gail's having a birthday soon. Well, happy early birthday, Gail. And we're going to just kind of make sure it's centered. If it moves up a little bit, I usually kind of gently squeeze it just to make sure that I have it for the most part centered, and then squeeze. Okay, so then you have your little flap here, which is where your panel is going to go in. Okay, so the other thing we're going to end up doing is we're going to layer this here. And I'm just going to show you kind of ahead of time what we're doing is, and we're going to, oh, and you know what? I should have cut this at 2 1/4. I was thinking correctly when I did this. So I'm going to show you a workaround. So 2 1/4 is what actually will fit into this piece. However, if you went and cut yours ahead of time already too big, here's what you can do. You're just going to slide your punch back over your paper, and you're going to go in and go up a little bit. So I cut a little bit above and a little bit below, probably about, I'd say that's probably about a 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So let me see if this fits. And if not, worst case scenario, we could always trim a little bit more. But if you decided that you wanted your paper to be a little bit bigger, might have to go just a hair more, just a little hair more. So I'm going to go just a teeny bit more up, and I'm just sliding it just a teeny bit farther down, making sure this fits in. That fits much better now. So 2 1/4 fits precisely in the hole. I think I made mine just a little bit. Let me make sure I'm telling you correctly. Yeah, that's 2 1/4. 2 1/4 is a little big. So you want 2 inches or below, and you won't have to modify the punches. But otherwise, it works out pretty simply because all you're going to do is just punch up and down a little bit. But you're going to have these little layers here. So it's really a pretty simple card. Just like so. We're going to move this over a little bit. We're not really layering this together yet. But there you go. Just like that. You want this to hold it in. That way, when your card is closed, because we're also going to punch out a little something here, it's going to stay closed just like that, okay? Now, one other thing you can do, you can either do this one of 2 ways. You can use a die to cut out a circle. You could use a punch. I'm just going to grab a smaller punch that we have and punch something out here. So I'm going to use the 1 1/4. Let's see. I'm going to punch this kind of from the end because this piece is going to go underneath. And what this is going to do is lay over here. So if it's a little too small, we might end up using this as our top layer. Let me just see one size up if we still have one that's current. 2 inches, 2 1/4. Sometimes it's so hard to tell because some of these punches are just so variants of when they do or don't discontinue them. Yeah, so this is 1 3/4. And I'm afraid I'm going to punch a little bit too close to the edge, but let's try it. Nope, that's still okay. So 1 3/4, that's a little too big. So I would suggest doing one of 2 things. Either I would use your layering dies because you have more choices of what you can use, and you probably can go up or down one. So I might end up actually putting this through. And we do forget about the stamp sets in the main catalog. You're right. We're going to maybe go back and end up die cutting this with a layering circle die. But essentially what you want to do is you're going to punch out your layer, whichever layer it is that you're going to use, from this piece underneath because it's going to get covered with this. So once again, just doing a little bit of paper saving. All right, so let me go ahead over here. And I'm going to grab the crackle paint. And this is what I did the other day. I just took my peacock pad. And this card is really very quick to make. I'm just showing you many different things you can do with it. So we could have probably knocked this out and been done with it a minute ago. So if it feels like I'm stretching it out, that's probably why. It is pretty fast. Not a whole lot to it, but a whole lot you can do to kind of change things around. So I just have a little scrap piece of paper here that I'm going to use to try to keep my fingers clean. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ink just this piece here. So I'm going to just put this down, layer it on top. I'm trying to keep it so I don't have this part here covered, but at the same time, I don't want to really get it on the back. So all we're doing is, whoops, I missed a little spot there, crackle painting this part. There you go. So just putting something on the top just to give it some visual interest. Again, this is where I said if you wanted to, you could use these little, I don't know if these are like, I don't want to say pussy willows, but is that what we call it? Pussy willows? I don't know if that's what those are, but anyway. And then when you're finished, all you can do is just wipe out your background stamp if you'd like. So then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of scene building. And that's why I did both of these with the My Meadow. So I'm going to open this up because eventually this is going to get covered over anyway. Wheat. Thank you, Diana. Just goes to show you, I don't really know my grains very well unless they come packaged. So we're going to build a little bit of a scene here in the background. And I'm trying to see what I did first. So first I end up doing the mountains. And when you have the mountain air stamps, it's actually reversible. So you have solid on one side and the other side has detail. You can make as many cards as you want. You're so funny. You guys are so nice. And that's why I always like making cards with you all, because everybody's so nice. You're like, do whatever you want. Appreciate that. Thank you. You grew up in the country. Yeah. Where I grew up was most definitely not the country. That's for sure. Okay, so I am going to stamp this off because when I did this the first time, it ended up being rather dark, almost too dark. So I'm going to do gray granite, which is what I did before, but I'm going to stamp it off before I put it onto the white piece because it was just a little too dark for what I wanted to do. So I'm going to stamp this off onto scrap. And then I'm going to stamp, again, I'm not really worried about this flap because it's going to go underneath. I'm going to stamp the mountains on. Okay. To stick kind of with the same theme, I'm going to use the pretty peacock. But I'm going to wipe this off real quick before I flip it over. So I'm just taking my stamp that I just wiped off, flipping it over, and now we're going to have the detailed part. And same thing again, I am going to stamp this, but I'm going to stamp it off because it is going to be super vivid, and I'm kind of trying to make it a little bit in the distance so it's kind of faded looking. So I'm just going to line this up. Doesn't have to be perfect. And there we have our mountain range, okay? So then the next thing I did, this one was kind of just filling in, so just wipe this off. Apparently I got my chamois just a little too wet this morning. All right, so I took the My Meadow and I kind of thought this was really cool because it looks like a stream coming down. But it also could be a little bit of cloud formation. I also use this here for clouds. You can kind of fill it in whatever you want, which is why I really like these. They're very versatile for using them for many different things. You could use them for clouds. You could use them for water. So I'm going to do the water first, just with the mountain. So I kind of made like a little bit of a lake down here. This one is full strength because Seaside Spray is rather light. So we have our little water part down here. And then what I did was I kind of just filled this in with the clouds. So it's pretty light. So for that one, I did that one pretty light. Then I came back in with this little swirly something or other here. I'm not really sure what it is. And this one I did in, those two were stamped off. I kind of brought this in so it almost looked like a cloud. And I did them two different directions, so it really wasn't like an identical look was what I was trying to not go for. So there is that. Then I went back in to the trees from the mountain air. And I did this originally with garden green. And I think I'm going to stick with that only because I don't want it to be too bright with the Granny Apple Green. So I'm going to stick with the garden green. And I did a couple different things. So I just did some in full strength. So I just stamped these in full strength, kind of moved it around, re-inked, moved over some. Stamp this one off. So it's kind of like you are looking down from another vista onto this, which is what I was trying to do with the multiple layers of trees. And I'm going to show you one other thing I did that I think turned out kind of neat looking. So then we have your trees, right? So you have your trees, but there's still a little bit of white space in there. So then what I did is I got Pear Pizzazz and I went back in with, I don't feel like I used that same one. I think I used the same little, it kind of looks like a curl of a wave, but I know that's not what it's supposed to be. since it's in a meadow. And then what I did was I went in with my Pear Pizzazz. I inked it, but I stamped it off, and I kind of filled it in just so it wouldn't be so shockingly white. And I did kind of turn it different directions. You could probably do this also with sponging if you wanted to. Again, don't forget, this part here is going to be covered, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. But I even did it here kind of at the edge, so just to get rid of all that harsh white. So, and whole nother side note, this doesn't really have anything to do with stamping whatsoever, but this kind of ironically reminds me this morning, I've been thinking about my grandfather a lot. I'm having like some time when I just really am missing my grandfather and my mom and all kinds of stuff. So I was thinking about how great thou art this morning. Now, granted, just the beauty of this whole thing. It's just a teeny little part of a card, but I thought it was so pretty. And now that I stamp it, it just kind of reminds me of that even more. But my grandfather sang in the choir at church, and he had such a beautiful voice. So I'm going to go ahead real quick while I'm putting this together. I'm just going to put glue on the back of this and layer this on top of it. So it's kind of funny when you're working on something, and I was thinking about him, and then this morning I was listening to the Tenors. They did actually a much more recent version, because unashamed, I will tell you, I'm still listening to Christmas music on XM, which I always listen to holiday traditions. And the Tenors come on, even though they're not really old Christmas music, I think because it's older style Christmas music. Doesn't that look pretty? So I was looking them up this morning, and they had a new version of How Great Thou Art that they were doing. So I was listening to them, which then led me to listen to Carrie Underwood, which, it was like just this whole snowball thing. And I will say, I'm not probably the most uber religious person, but boy, I do love God, and I certainly do love all the beauty we have around us. So it's going to lay like that. And now I'm wondering if this green isn't going to be, no, I think that'll look pretty. I think it'll look nice. So I'm going to cut this out with using this circle that was from underneath here, because I didn't lay this down yet. I think I'm going to cut this into just a little bit smaller of a circle, and then we'll do our sentiment in something smaller as well. So this isn't going to really have a whole lot of white behind it. If you wanted to, you could add like another layer of coordinating cardstock. So we could put like a layer of crumb cake here that maybe we did with the subtle embossing folder or something like that. So you could always add that, but you can write all of whatever it is you want to write on the inside here. So you do have plenty of room to write something. But, all right, let me grab my circles, and I'm going to see. I might actually just go down one notch with this stitched. This one is too big for sure. Yeah. And let's see if this one is larger than, yep, that's going to be about the same size as that. So I might have to go to the regular layering circles, because the stitch circles, you only have 4 sizes for those. So maybe what I'll do is I'll do a scalloped circle. That'll take it down a little bit. So I'm going to run this through with the scalloped circle, and then let's see what we can layer it with. That is going to be about the same size. I think we're going to have to go down one smaller. So we're going to use this punch for the other one. So let me just run this through real quick. So what I'm going to do is the one that I already punched out from underneath of here, I'm going to just run this through just to cut it down a little bit, and then it'll have that scalloped edge, and then we're going to use our punch. We're going to stamp something small. I'm not sure where we're going to fit on there. I did happy birthday on a different one, but I'm not sure if that's going to fit on here or not. And I punched my circle. Look, I should have taped that down because that just barely made it to the edge there. That was a close one. So that is probably the second smallest scallop circle from the layering circles. And I'm going to do that. All right, and let's take a look here. Now, neither of these, if you noticed, They don't have any sentiments whatsoever. So these are great for building scenes, but they're not really wonderful for sentiments. However, there are a couple things that I did. I did use this happy birthday. So I'm thinking when I use this, I must have used a slightly bigger punch than this, because this definitely will not fit in here. But another one that would be really nice that might fit in here, and I'm going to see, is from Morning Star. It's going to be tight, but So Proud of You will fit into that. So I'm going to use that. That's what I'm going to do with it. So I'm just going to do So Proud of You. You could make this into a different sentiment completely by changing up to something, something different. Let's see if, trying to look for a little piece of paper I might have here. There we go. So I'm going to stamp this in, just to stay with the same theme, I'm going to go with Pretty Peacock. Probably could also do Granny Apple Green if you wanted to, but I'm just going to do Pretty Peacock. Oh, that turned out really nice. And where is my little punch? It up a little bit. We might lose a teeny bit of that U tail. No, if you get it on there, that'll work out pretty nicely. Okay, so just like that. You're very country. You had Alan Jackson's. That's probably the one I need to hear, because I've been looking for a really good one, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I do really love Josh Groban's voice, but I wanted one that was like a really deep voice, and I bet you Alan Jackson would sound a lot more like my grandfather than who I've listened to thus far. So thanks for bringing that up. That is a good one to listen to. Alan Jackson does have a nice voice. Absolutely. The other one that popped up was Elvis, which I do love Elvis. However, I can only think of Elvis as like Viva Las Vegas. And I know Elvis did a lot of gospel singing as well, so that's probably very pigeonhole of me to put him in there. But so we're going to do this like that. I don't know. I probably could have gone with the dark, but I think this is going to look pretty. What we're going to do is we're going to just put 2 dimensionals down here to kind of hold it in place. So one thing I will tell you, you're going to think to yourself, you really don't need this in that far, because you kind of want it to be centered. However, if you don't put it in far enough, this flap isn't going to hold it closed. So you definitely want to put it in a little farther than you think. Okay, because this is going to sit right here and kind of hold it closed when it's flat. But otherwise, you do want it to be in there a little so it stays closed. So what I'm going to suggest is we're going to put this part on afterwards. We're going to flip this kind of over where it is. I'm going to use liquid glue. That way I can adjust it a little bit if I need to. And kind of holding it in place where I want it. Just kind of eyeballing, make sure I have it over far enough. But the liquid glue is going to give you the ability to be able to move it if you don't feel like it's, if you don't feel like it's centered nicely. So I think that looks pretty good like that. Okay, so let's see. Kind of want it to be able to fold in. If you feel like it's over a little too far, you can always slide it over, but I'm pretty good with how it is. Okay, so it will still stand up if you need it to, but that way it actually is going to close. So there we have that. I'm going to open this up and just give it a little teeny press. Oh, I'm sorry, Gail. That stinks. That's nothing more annoying than that when you're watching. So hopefully we're not having the Facebook issues are now haunting YouTube, because I know sometimes people have been having some issues lately with Facebook pausing and stopping and all that other stuff. I'm actually going to put my dimensionals here. That way I know they're not in the way. Okay? So I'm going to just push those down. And then just take a look. Make sure I like where it is. Pretty good. So Proud of You. That's nice. And then you can always add something to the inside. So if you wanted to make this into a birthday card, if you wanted to make this into an inspirational card, this one is a nice one too. Each day is a new beginning. So I'm going to add that to this one. I think it should fit on the line here. Yep. And I'm going to do this just to kind of bring the color back just a little bit. I'm going to actually do this in Granny Apple Green. And that's going to be too small. right, so I'm going to just ink this up. Again, I am stamping onto a mat underneath, but when you use photopolymer, you want to make sure you have some sort of a mat. All right, and I'm going to just put this right here in the center. Just like that. Very pretty. So really nice card. Again, you could totally change up the color scheme that you use for this. For the inside. Oops, hold on. My thing got stuck here. So really simple. But again, it will stand up when it's open. So a nice card. You probably could use a variety of punches. If you wanted to use the pretty label punch, it would just be a little bit wider. But I think this looks really nice the way it is. Just with that, it's very clean, very simple. So before we go, let me just go back through, because unfortunately the only thing that is different about YouTube Lives is once you end it, all the comments disappear. So let me just make sure I haven't missed anything important. Celine Dion is my mint macaron. Oh, look at that, Karen. You're even rhyming and you don't even know it. Oh, Lord. You don't love Celine, huh? Celine does have a beautiful voice, but she's definitely, I think, probably an accustomed voice to listen to, right? All right. Thank you, Roberta. Thanks very much for saying that. I appreciate it. So I'm going to just see if I can, let's see. I'm going to pop on here real quick onto my YouTube and see the comments before I go. Oops, that's not what I wanted. All right. Let me just hop on here real quick. Of course, I have to watch an ad to be able to see what it is that I said about myself. Let's see. Alrighty. Glossy paper and stays on. Now, so Stephanie, were you talking about when you were talking about the birds? I'm assuming you were speaking about earlier. We were showing that I made this, which is great, but the only thing is, with this background, it's embossed. And I don't really think you can emboss onto glossy cardstock because I think it makes it a little bit warped. So, let's see. And move the camera down. I got you, Donna. I'm right. Hopefully I was in there. Gail's soon having a birthday. Mailing Fiona the hippo a card. Oh, Donna, you're so cute. She's turning 3. I love it. Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, you said your son. That's funny. You said your son is laughing about sending her a card. Yeah, you better not forget. If you're sending a hippo a birthday card, you better send Jared a card, right? But it is pretty simple. It's a simple card. Like I said, if you wanted to add something extra to it, you could totally add another layer here in the background. Even like a complementary color would be nice. You could do a layer of Seaside Spray and run it through. Again, the Subtles embossing folder is really nice because it adds just a little something to it, but it's not too much that it would overwhelm or take from the card or anything. So it's raining in Arizona. Oh my gosh, it is so cold here this morning. I woke up, it said it felt like 15. So we definitely have no snow, but we have winter, that's for sure. Yeah, how great that. We did that at my grandfather's funeral, as a matter of fact, as well. That one, How Great Thou Art, and on Eagle's Wings. Those were some of his favorite songs. Yes, and this is a buckle card, I'm guessing. Elvis is mint macaroon. Oh, Lord. I don't know. I don't think he's really dead either. Why did he die on the potty? You guys are hilarious. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. You know, I gotta say, is the whole thing of Martin Luther King yesterday. Martin Luther King Day was yesterday, so there was no school. Lots of things were closed. And whenever we have off on a Monday, it totally throws me off. I never know, is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? So I was like, oh, I'll go live today, and then I'll have a skip day. But no, tomorrow's Wednesday, so I will see you tomorrow as well. So thank you all very much for joining me today. I appreciate it. I did make a really great video, in case you missed it yesterday, where I used... I think I might have them here somewhere, but I used a piece of 6x6 DSP and we made 4 cards. Nope, I must have already put them away because I have so much other stuff out. So I did that. Make sure if you didn't watch it, it gives you some great examples for cards. Also, same thing where we're using the background pieces to layer into the front. So it's really easy to be able to make a fun card with using very minimal supplies. So it really was not a lot of paper. So I thought that was pretty good. Also, being able to use your DSP instead of saving it and not using it. So I think I'm going to try to do this one more time to see if I can get out a perfected way to do this. If not, I might move on to a different card and do it with that so we can have something else with the silhouette. But I thought it was really neat with the full black embossing. So thank you guys very much for joining me today. I hope to see all of you tomorrow on Facebook, again, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope you have a wonderful day through until tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching.